What's up, y'all? It's your girl, Carm, back with another episode of Hoops with Carm. I'm gonna just get right into this. Eastern Conference semifinals, Heat, Sixers, Game 2 in South Beach. Sixers took yet another loss, losing against the Heat, 119-103. What happened? Number one, defense and lack of effort by the Sixers. The Sixers played man-to-man defense tonight. They did not play zone defense once tonight's game. Last game, I felt like the zone defense was better and more effective for the Sixers on both ends of the floor. When they played zone, they got the Heat to kind of get off their game a little bit, and they got going offensively. The zone, they come together. It's not so much pressure as the man-to-man with people having to stick to their man. They're moving together in the zone, and it's just better for the Sixers. The Sixers do not have the personnel or the discipline to really maintain a successful man-to-man defense from quarter one to quarter four. So the Sixers going man-to-man, I saw them really be the most effective probably in the fourth quarter for about 5 possessions or so. They got some deflections, some steals, and they got going defensively. But besides that, the rest of the game, the Sixers did what they usually do, which is they play good defense the first 16, 17 seconds. And then at the end of the possession, they usually go help the one Sixers player usually goes to help their teammate. They lose their man, and that person either gets an open three, a layup, a jump shot, a dunk, or the Sixers foul and bail the other team out. So I feel like the Sixers, they try to kind of get the man-to-man going, but they just don't have the discipline to keep up and maintain it throughout the game. Besides that, down on the boards, the Heat again bodying the Sixers down low. Every time the ball went up, you saw Heat jerseys down the block, boxing out, getting the rebounds. The Sixers just were focused on the next play. They weren't focused at the play at hand. The Sixers got to get better at just following through and trying to get that loose ball if they can. The Sixers were not getting offensive rebounding, second chance points. The Heat had 21 second chance points. The Sixers only had 12. The Heat had 44 rebounds. The Sixers only had 34. Now, the Sixers tried to do a little something. They tried to pressure the top of the key, the Heat's ball handler. They got a couple steals, some, disruptions going. But besides that, the Sixers just did not commit with that energy and that effort like the Heat always do every play with going after those balls and getting those second chance points. Offensively, bright stars of this game have to be Tyrese Maxis, Tobias Harris. Maxey had 34 points. He went off, especially in the third quarter, going to the rack, getting a shot, getting a foul. He was keeping the Sixers in the game. But then for some reason, at the end of the third, going into the fourth, Sixers kind of went away from Maxey, and Maxey was just deferring to Harden. Tobias Harris, he had 21 points. He's been great. The first game and this game, he played really well. Offensively, not settling for little jumpers or just, random threes. He was going to get his shot, and then he was locking down people defensively. So you cannot complain about Tobias Harris these 2 games, and even the Toronto series. Tobias has played well. James Harden, 20 points, 9 assists. James Harden, he was aggressive. He tried to get his shot. You can't deny the man got the floor vision. He's a great passer, but as we've seen, Harden is not the finisher that he once was. He doesn't have the explosiveness to get to the rack, and his three-point shot is not the same as it used to be. So we got to play with the James Harden that's on the Sixers right now, right? So in the fourth quarter, I felt like Harden kind of deflated the offense somewhat. He got the ball. He was dribbling too much, holding on to the ball for too long. And then around 15 seconds or so, he decides to pass it out. So that leaves the next player kind of having to make a decision because the clock is getting down to that 24. And that leaves the offense not flowing. And it just hurts them because it doesn't get everybody going. It kind of just Harden ISO-ing, and then he decides to pass it out, and hopefully a shot goes in. Now, for the three-point line, the Sixers were only 8 for 30 from the three-point line, 27%. Can't happen. The Sixers have to knock down those three-point shots when they have them and open shots when they're there. So important to just take advantage of those opportunities. The Heat, Jimmy Butler got going in the third quarter, okay? He had 22 points at the end of the game, 6 rebounds, 12 assists, double-double for him. He was just making all the right plays. He's making the right passes, down low, picking apart the Sixers defense, getting to his shots. And then Bam, the second guy on the team, especially with Lowry being out, he had 23. And Paul Reed, and honestly, anybody on the Sixers besides, obviously, Joel would be the guy, but Joel was not playing. They have nothing for Bam, nothing. Paul Reed, he doesn't have the experience. Bam is bigger, he is a little more skilled. And so even when Paul Reed was able to kind of contain Bam, Bam just passed the ball because Bam's a great passer. Now, Heat bench versus the Sixers bench. I said it before and I'll say it again. The Sixers do not have the depth in their bench and the Heat do. Tyler Hero, 6th man of the year this year. Came off the Heat's bench like he always does with energy. He had 18. Victor Oladipo, great guy to have on your bench. Former All-Star, 19 points. Now the Sixers bench. Niang only had 5 points. Finally made a 3, but only had 5 points and he fouled out of the game. Korkmaz only had 8 points. Thibault, 0 points, played 20 minutes. Can't happen. Now, the Heat weren't perfect. The Heat had more turnovers than the Sixers, but the Sixers could not capitalize on those turnovers because they were not getting rebounds and they weren't capitalizing on their open shots. So they just could not stop the Heat. The Heat were just going on all ends. They had the energy, the effort, and then defensively, the Sixers just cannot maintain that man-to-man. They were just kind of falling into old habits. Now, obviously, Joel Embiid being out is the big story with this series. Joel being out, taking him off the Sixers team, as you see, it is a night and day difference of what kind of team the Sixers are. Please tell me how Joel Embiid is not MVP of the entire league this year. Joel Embiid is the equalizer, the difference maker. He makes the Sixers great. You see the Sixers without Joel. Joel needs to come back. If Joel comes back, hopefully he's likely for game 3. We'll see if Joel will make his return game 3 at home. The Sixers have not been a good home team this year. So that's kind of going to be up in the air. But if Joel comes back, I think that the Sixers have an opportunity to tie up this series because Joel, even though he's hurt, he's going to play his best. He's going to give it his all because he wants to win and he is that guy. But if Joel does not come back, what needs to happen? Doc needs to game plan. What defense is going to work? What defense will work with the personnel that we have? What lineups work best? So Doc has to figure those things out if the Sixers have a chance without Joel Embiid. Because if the Sixers do not lock down defensively on the Heat and stop them, it doesn't matter what kind of runs the Sixers go on. Because if they can't stop the Heat, not going to win.